Hello and welcome to the fourth tutorial in the series of Java Swing GUI programming tutorials from caveofprogramming.com. In the last tutorial I added this panel to this little application here, and I've added some components to the panel here, but I've not actually made them appear on the panel. And I've also set the layout to GridBagLayout and created a GridBagConstraints, and now I'm going to show you how to use the GridBagConstraints and GridBagLayout to actually add the components. So GridBagLayout is the most flexible of the layout managers, but also the trickiest to use. And if you learn this one, you can practically just dispense with the rest almost. The thing that I'd recommend you do is try to divide your controls into kind of logical different sections in your mind and put big comments above each section in the code. So I'm going to tackle the first column of controls first here, and I'm going to have some labels down here, two labels in a column, and then here I'll have text fields on the right hand side, and underneath I'll have a button somewhere. So the most important thing to set is the GridBagConstraints, grid X and grid Y. I'm going to set this equal to 0 and 0. And what this is you can think of the GridBag layout manager as dividing your panel or whatever into a grid, and you start numbering at the upper left hand corner. So it kind of the coordinate system works in the same way that old style TV kind of retraces, and for all I know the LCDs as well. That is, it goes from the top left hand corner across and works down. So Y goes increases going downwards, and X increases going from left to right. So the first control will be, I want to put this name label in the first row and first column. And I also need to set here not only the grid X and grid Y, but also gc.weight X and weight Y. I'll set that equal to just a half. And what this is this determines how much of the space will be allocated to your particular cell. And I don't think these numbers have to add up to 1 or anything like that. You don't have to have all the different weights of X adding up to 1, for example. It's just that, say you have weight X here set to 0.5, and in the next row all your weight X's are set to 1, then your next row is going to take up 2/3 of the space, and this will take up 1/3. So you can just kind of fill about with these till it looks right, basically. So I'll add here, I'll say add name label, comma, GC, and if I just kill that and run it again now, we've got the name label right in the middle here because it's just one row and one column. And if I say gc dot, I'll retype here grid X equals 0 and gc dot grid Y equals 1 this time, because we want to go to the next row down, and I'll retype that just for clarity. And then I'll say add, I've also got an occupation label to prompt people to enter their occupation label, comma, GC again, and I'll get rid of this space to make it clear that this is intended to apply to this. So if I run that, now I've got 2 rows, and I want to add in the next row some text fields, in the next column some text fields. So I'll make a kind of note here, second column, and I'll say gc dot, so we want to say grid X is going to be now equal to 1, and gc.grid Y for the first control will be 0, because I want to add it in the first row. I had to think for a minute there. So I'll say add name field and gc, and then I'll say gc.grid X is going to be still equal to 1, but I'll just retype it for clarity, and gc.grid Y is now going to be equal to 1 as well, and I can say add occupation field, colon gc. And if I run this, you can see I've got my text boxes here. Now I want the kind of text boxes to align over to the left, and I want these labels to align over to the right. And the way I can fix that is for the first column here, I can say gc.anchor, and anchor is kind of the thing that tells your controls which side to stick to, and I can say GridBagConstraints dot line start, and that will make them stick to the left hand side. Sorry, I want to say actually line end to make the labels stick to the right. So if I run that, they're now aligned over to the right hand side. And the text fields, I want to make them align left. So for the second column, I can say gc.anchor equals GridBagConstraints dot line start. Okay, so run this, and now we've got these aligned next to each other. Now I don't want these, well actually, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the button here at the bottom, and I'm going to make the grid cell containing the button take up most of the space. So I'll say kind of final row, and I'll say gc.grid x I'm going to make equal to 1 because I want to put the button kind of underneath this kind of column here, and I'll say gc.grid y equals 2, and I'll say add what do I call it, add button comma gc. So if I run this, now I've got my button, and I want to push these to the top of the form because they look a bit stupid all spaced out like this. So here I'm going to say gc.weight y, so this is the weight for the last row, equals, let's give it a really high value, and if I run that, you can see that it's this last thing is taking up most of the space. I also want to stick this button up here somewhere, so to do that I can say gc.anchor equals, and I'll say GridBagConstraints, and I want to make it stick to, I've got a first line, I think the one I want is first line start, so you've got kind of first line start is here, first line ends here, don't know what this would be, well, and then first, well this won't be anything because there's no anchor here, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, and then you've got line start here, line end here, and last line start, last line end there. So enough wittering, so you'll see how that works out. And that looks, I think, not too bad, although certainly we could do plenty more with this. For the moment, I think I'm going to leave it there. There are lots of other things you can use with GridBagConstraints, lots of other fields that will be handy for you. And probably the most handy would be, I haven't mentioned, for example, gc.fill, which you can set to fill horizontal, fill vertical, or none, and it's set to none at the moment, but if I said, for example, both, that would make my controls try to fill up the entire grid like that. So it's no good for a button, but obviously if it's a text field or something, that could be really useful. Okay, so now we've got a reasonably presentable kind of form here, and you have probably been wondering how to connect this form to the kind of rest of the program and make it actually do stuff. And what I'm going to do in the next tutorial is I'm going to show you how to implement your own events so that this form can fire events, and we're going to have a controller which is just going to be the mainframe class that will listen to those events and then fill stuff in here in response to those events. And I'm also going to get rid of this button because I just kind of put that in originally just to kind of have something to show you. And so next time, as I say, we'll look at custom events and we'll continue to work on this app. So join me then, and until then, happy coding.